Okay. All right. So let's start. References remain the same. Okay, and I have taken little, apart from this, I have taken some stuff from uh, Linux book. Okay, you don't need to go into details. Today's lecture is something which is, well, you should know, but not very important from programming perspective. Okay, so we'll discuss only two things today: user space threads and kernel space thread, or user managed, a user created thread, so threads created by user library totally in user space, or threads created with the help of kernel. Okay, so recall, thread is a single execution stream in a process which can be independently scheduled by the kernel and share the same address space with any other threads. So this we have studied several times before, right? Again, I want to repeat because it should go into your head if it's not gone yet. Okay, operations and concurrent, if they are arbitrarily interleaved so that they progress independently. Okay, so we have discussed the concept of concurrency versus parallelism. Concurrency also includes parallelism, but here the operations can be interleaved. For example, multiple threads executing on a CPU, when there is a single CPU or processor, then we can say the word the threads are executing concurrently. While we can also say that threads are executing concurrently on multiple processors. Okay, so multiple threads of a process can execute on multiple processors. Then actually it is a parallelism. Parallelly they are working, but we can also use that they are executing concurrently. So concurrently needs to be more precisely defined, whether execution of single processor or multiple, whether it's a non-parallel or parallel, right? So note that threads can be scheduled to use the CPU in any order. Okay, in any order. Of course, who decides on this? This scheduler decides on that. Okay, a thread may be removed from CPU at any point of execution and replaced by another thread. We have studied is the context switching happens. Okay, operation which cause one thread to suspend execution do not cause execution of other threads to be suspended. Now, this is a new property. It means that only single thread can be suspended without causing other threads to suspend, right? Fine. No, what happens is that the scheduler schedules a thread in using some scheduling algorithm, but user cannot force scheduler to schedule them in a particular order. Means scheduler is not taking instructions from user. However, threads, unlike processes, I don't know about processes, but threads can have priority attribute. Of course, we will not go into those details, but in general, the scheduler is free to schedule threads in any order. Now, if threads are doing some job, all threads combinedly, they together are doing some task, and that requires synchronization. Okay, then it should be programmed in that way, right? So if the order of the thread execution matters, which thread will execute first and says which will execute next, and also they need to synchronize sometime or other. Thread must fully complete task before other threads can execute. So this is a condition. Then the thread execution must be synchronized to coordinate action. So there must be some instructions or so-called APIs that will help a thread to synchronize with other threads. All right. Okay. This point we have already discussed several times. Any data whose address may be determined by a thread are accessible to all threads in a process. So in a process, if there are multiple threads, okay, whatever data or heap or a static variable or a variable in stack, or in malloc, using malloc we create some list or some areas where program can use. All these whatever is created by first thread are accessible by all. Okay, so there is actually nothing private unless you want to make certain things private for a particular thread, right? So thread may say that some area is private to me. Area means memories. Some memory location is private to me, and for that it must use some system call or POSIX library or library, okay, that's interacting with, must provide an API to do this activity. All right, any question? All right, let's go ahead. So what is the problem in multi-threading? Yeah, we have studied good points, but there are certain problems, right? Problems are that okay, if program structure is such that it offers very little parallelism. Okay, some programs are some tasks that we want to program, and naturally it has natural parallelism available, right? And that works. If not so, right, or if there is a parallelism and programming is done badly, then multi-threaded programs will take more time than normal program. Okay, and it's also very difficult to program. You know, chances of error is very high. In fact, we tried in my previous organization, we were trying multi-threading. So I asked the person who was changing the code from a single thread to multi-thread and asked him to show me the performance improvement. He said the performance degraded by 20% or something like that. Okay, so they, if done badly, then it can create problems. So it requires a lot of programming discipline to plan, coordinate, and development of this multi-threaded program. And then it's very difficult to debug and correct, because a lot of things are happening together, and you'll have to know, even now you need a lot of visualization. Then when you have created say 10 or 15 threads for a task and each are working independently, which thread has caused a problem? Okay, all this needs to be properly thought of, or somebody has to really look into details, and then sometimes it's not possible. And so is testing, right? Because testing, see, in general, software testing is very complicated task, because a code that is written can, see, if there is only one way the program may behave, what given input values, then testing is simple. But there may be millions of ways a program may behave depending on different input values and depending on environmental parameters. So it's almost impossible to test any program fully. Okay, so that's the reason, if in most of the organization, wherever you will go, you will find the testing team size is almost 40%, and sometimes bigger than maybe 50% of development team size. Okay, so every team will have developers, testers, and few other people. Usually number of testers is significantly significant in number, maybe almost as high as number of developers. Okay, all right. And in fact, testers are more if coding work is less, and then more of integration work. Okay, any question up to this point?
Sir, could you repeat the previous slide? Actually, I got disconnected.
Oh, okay. This one?
Yes, sir.
The same thing, right? I mean, whatever areas, if first thread can access, all other threads can access all those areas, unless you create a private area. If a thread says that I don't want to share something with others, then there are APIs available, the system calls available that will allow to do the same. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, so now there is a concept of user space threads and kernel space threads, right? Now this is very, different authors use these terms differently, and I have read it from at least 5 or 6 books, and I found a different explanation. Okay, so we'll try to distinguish between user thread and kernel thread, and user level thread, and then user level thread managed by kernel. Okay, so don't get confused right now, but we'll say that there are basically 2 places we can implement threads, right? User space and kernel space. Okay, so there are user level programs like the program we write, and then in that we create multiple threads in a process, right? Fine. In kernel space, so this is in user space. So we call, okay, and then there are kernel routines, kernel size is quite big, and so now why not they also create thread? Why do you think that kernel will use only processes, right, not threads? So if in kernel space the kernel program creates thread, then we call it kernel space thread. Okay, now sometimes some authors in Linux book they call it kernel threads. Okay, now these are different nomenclatures. So threads that you create in user space, user program, that's user threads. So while there are threads that are created for kernel program that we call as kernel threads. Okay, kernel space threads, sometimes it's called kernel thread. So we'll use, that's the reason I have used the word kernel space thread. Okay, so now let's look at user threads concept, right? Now user threads can be implemented in 2 ways, right? It can be implemented in library. Okay, so we have for example okay, so we have a process. Now process will always be created by OS. Now let's say this is OS. So OS will create this process. Okay, now this process is available, user process is there. Let's show it with a rectangle, and then there is a library. Okay, that can create thread, and that can also manage thread. It can create, it can destroy thread, and that also do context switching within the threads, while OS only understand processes. Okay, all right. So we can implement thread package entirely in user space. Okay, it means that kernel is not aware of threads at all. So it means that all thread management is done by application. The kernel knows nothing about it. It continues to manage single threaded process. The advantage of this is, what's the advantage of doing this? See, only advantage, then of course literature claims many advantages, but one great advantage is that if the OS does not support thread, okay, then still threads can be created at higher level, user level. Okay, what could be other reason? If OS is generally slow, because in order to reach to OS to do anything, okay, for example, to create thread or destroy thread, okay, or kill thread or do context switching between thread, you will have to make a system call. Okay, and it's very expensive process, right? So while you don't need to do a lot of things when thread switching happens in comparison to process switching. So if it is done at the level of at the user level, then very little effort is involved in creation, thread creation, thread deletion, and thread switching. Okay, so this is one great advantage. So there is a speed. Okay, and second, of course, I mean, we have seen that if OS does not support, then we can't do it. Okay, all right. So, all right. So user level library will have this kind of constructs, right, or APIs or functions. These are APIs, and then its implementation is done in the library, like thread create. When program calls thread create, then this library creates a thread. Okay, and then it means that when we say it creates a thread, it means that all attributes related to thread, it must have data structure to save. For example, it will have TCB and other stuff, right? And also it should have local scheduler. Scheduling of threads or movement between one thread to another thread is done by local scheduler. Note that this is nothing to do with higher level scheduler, lower level scheduler, which is done by OS. Now OS only see processes, right? So it can swap the process in all the threads within a process that's being managed will get swapped out. Okay, if OS does that, but within the slot that is provided by OS for a process, this library can manage these threads. Okay, any question?
Sir, could you tell about the high level scheduler again?
So high level scheduler, see, at user level or within library, see, library has created threads, right? Okay, of course, depending on what your program says, right? But lower level scheduler is a part of kernel in general, right? But kernel is not aware of higher level threads in this model, the model which we are studying now. Okay, and then if there are multiple threads, an advantage of having multiple threads is that when one thread is blocked, other thread can be scheduled on a processor. Okay, then it means that there must be some way of scheduling, then moving one thread out, bringing second thread in, and saving the state in the user space somewhere, and second threads, whatever context is there or state is there, bring into the process. All these activities are done by library. So it means that the library must have functions or programs to do this task, right? Okay, so it means that now scheduler, there must be local scheduler in the library which will manage, which will schedule threads. Okay, is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Now note that kernel is not aware of what's happening on top. Kernel is not aware of even there is a scheduler or the threads being created in this model. Okay, all right. So all right. So the OS which support this Mac C threads, BSD, Solaris UI threads, and DC threads. Okay, all right. So now, how do we implement it? Now this is a depiction of the same thing that we have studied just now. So this is a kernel. Kernel is aware only about processes. So it will have process table and PCBs, etc. Okay, this the kernel will manage processes, right? So once process is swept out and brought in, or process created, corresponding data structure is created, and there must be scheduler that will do scheduling. Now let's assume that now one process has been scheduled, and this let's assume the process. Within that, we can have a library, or when in library in execution or the part of that, we can say runtime system. Okay, and now runtime system in fact provides threading environment. So there must be all the data structures corresponding to these threads, for example thread table or TCB, must also have a scheduler and many other things which are not shown here. Okay, note that all these threads are managed here, but kernel knows that there is only one process running. Okay, and there must be a PCB or process table entry corresponding to that. All right, any question? Now note that only one process is running, so this is running, and let's assume it's swapped out or it's moved out, transitioned out of CPU. Then it's a responsibility of kernel to bring the other process in. Now the other process also will run runtime environment and then can create thread if it wants. Otherwise, it can run as a process. All right, got it? All right. So now we need various data structures that of course we have studied, thread table or TCB. This thread table or TCBs are managed by runtime and system. This also we have studied. Okay. So all these points we have earlier studied. When thread moves from ready state to blocked state, when thread moves to ready state or blocked state, let's assume thread is running, it moves to say for example ready state because timeout. Okay, then its state must be stored in TCB or thread table. Okay, and vice versa. Okay, all right. So all these things we have studied in the context of process. Same things applies, right? I mean, when a thread which is in ready state, if it is scheduled by local scheduler, then it will look at all the register values, etc. in thread table, and then move it to processor registers and so on. Now we have not discussed here about process image or thread image. Where is it? Note that thread image or process image is still there in user level, right? Although we have not explicitly discussed. So it's there. So there must be stack corresponding to a thread. Who will create that stack? Note that kernel is not aware of all these thread things, but each thread needs own stack, right? It will be created by runtime library. Okay, all right. So let's not get into that level of details, but let's focus only on concepts, right? Because it's again very complex, right? Very complex. That okay. Then next question you can ask is that all this that's created by basically kernel creates this in user space, right? Okay, then can a thread library access it? Yes, it can access it. Who gives permission for it to access? All these details we are not going to get into, right? I mean, because would thread library run into same address space? So runtime library may not. If it does not, then who will give permission? So all these are details. We are not getting into those level of details, but all we know is that there is a local management of threads, local creation, local restriction, local scheduling, and all the when thread moves out, it's all the information about a thread, the state of the thread is saved in TCB and then variables of course go into stack in that process image corresponding to thread. Okay, all right. So advantage, we have seen that thread switching can be very fast in if it is done at user level. Okay, and you note that see it's usually complex even implementation of this library, because timer is a concept that timers are accessible only to at kernel level. So let's assume that we have these threads that we have created. One thread starts running and continues to run. Okay, now we don't have timer interrupt here. If timer interrupts comes, then all threads will be moved out because it's a process level. Then there must be some mechanism. Okay, what can be those mechanisms? Okay, so one mechanism is thread by itself will say I am done, give task to somebody else, because all threads must work in cooperation with each other, right? So it must also yield. Yield means that okay, it does not mean that it has IO or something. Okay, some operations. It says that I have run enough. Now give chance to other threads. All right. So there are, of course, there are many mechanisms. So we are not going to get into the details. Now, another advantage is that now scheduling algorithm scheduling can be done at the process level. So different algorithms we can use for different processes that are running, right? Or to schedule threads within that process. Unlike kernel level scheduler, which runs at kernel level, it cannot be tailored for each process. And other things like garbage collection is easy. And overall number of threads that can be created at user level is very large because there is no kernel overhead. All right, any question?
Sir, I want to clarify that if we will create two threads in the user space, then there will be no chance of parallelism. Is it correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you are running exactly in the same processor.
Yes, because kernel will only provide one processor, that particular process.
Yes, absolutely right. Good thinking. Thank you. All right, but what are the disadvantages? As you just mentioned, we cannot run different threads on different processors. The kernel is not aware of that, right? A process same process cannot run on two processors, so only limited parallelism is possible. Okay. Now what happens that a thread makes a system call. So there are multiple threads running concurrently, okay, of a process, and one makes a syscall. Okay, once it makes a syscall, the OS may put this into blocked state. Blocked state means that processor, it moves out of the processor, all the contents of the process moves out of the processor and saved somewhere. Okay, so the state of these will of course be saved in local TCVs, etc. So note that although one thread has made syscall, all these threads will get blocked because whole process get blocked. Okay, so what is the solution? The solution is there are multiple solutions proposed. First is that make syscalls non-blocking. But who will make this? OS doesn't know about it, right? If latest OSs of course can do that. Okay, if you run user level threads, and OS is aware of that, then some kind of coordination can happen. Okay, and of course, most of the thread libraries today are partly implemented in user space and partly in kernel space. Okay, then this coordination happens. So right now we are not going to that hybrid model. Similarly, a page fault by a thread is wants to read something and it's not there in main memory. Okay, then it has to access it from disk, and there is a page fault. Now all it means that if single thread does page fault, then all these threads are blocked. Okay, and this point we have already discussed. If thread continues to run, we can't use timer at user level, right? Then it has to do voluntarily, a yield, or it has to use yield operation. Okay, now let's move into kernel management, thread management in kernel. Okay, now some authors call it kernel thread. The threads that are created in user space are also called kernel threads, wherein the management is done in kernel level. Okay, now maybe there is a theory that because if these entities that are created at top are visible to kernel, okay, these are all visible to kernel, and it's actually they are created by kernel, managed by kernel, destroyed by kernel. So that's the reason some authors call it kernel threads, because ultimately in kernel also there must be a thread to manage these threads. Okay, so nevertheless we are not going into details of that level because there's a nomenclature that's used, right? Because and now most of the OSs today, most of the systems today, like Linux or even Windows, the kernel knows about threads being there, right? It's the kernel's responsibility to create thread. A user level, a user can use API, and that API internally can be implemented, which use a system call, and then OS comes to know and creates a thread. Okay, all right. Okay, so there's no runtime system required, no thread table in each process, because all this management is happening here in kernel. Okay, so you can see now we have thread table or TCBs, and we have also process table. So it has two data structures. It knows about threads and also knows about process. Okay, now how these are organized, that you'll have to go into details to see how Unix organizes this. Okay, but before that, kernel creates and destroys threads as per request, and updates and correspondingly updates thread table. Okay, now what is the advantage? If a thread blocks, okay, if one thread does some system call and that causes it to stop until result comes in, okay, then kernel can run another thread of the same process. So there are multiple threads in a process. So let's assume there are two processes, P1 and P2. Multiple threads are there in this one, and let's assume this is a single thread. So if this thread does syscall and it is reading from hard disk or page fault, whatever, okay, then OS can schedule any one of the threads of that process, say P1, or alternatively it's left to scheduler. It can actually schedule, it may schedule the second process. P2. Okay, so now we can take full advantage of multiprocessor architecture. So there are multiple processors are there, multiple cores, then different threads can run, say this, let's call it this T11, T12. So T11 can run here and T12 can run into second processor. This is let's say core 1 or core 2. Okay. Any question? समझ में आ रहा है? नहीं आ रहा? अद्वैत
समझ
आ गया? त्रिशा क्या हुआ? Not there today? I saw it logging in.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to understand? नहीं आ रहा तो बताइए, फिर we can repeat. कुछ is there a confusion anywhere? Okay. All right. There's some. Okay. All right. No problem. So basically, thread manager creation, destruction of thread can happen either at the user level or kernel level. Now, kernel level, most of OSs today do it at kernel level because more parallelism can be exploited. Although it is little slower, scaling is usually difficult. So now context switching, etc., requires a lot more time. The kernel is involved. Okay. Now, so kernel managed threads happen in Windows OS and Linux, Linux OS. Right? So now, of course, this point we discussed this kernel managed threads, although they are at user level, but managed at the kernel, managed by kernel. There's creation, destruction, etc. happens at kernel. Also called kernel threads by some authors. However, we'll call them kernel managed threads. Okay. Okay, so now we have, of course, when it's done in management is done in kernel, it should have some data structures. And one data structure is TCB. The TCB will, when thread is moved out or context switched, then the TCB will contain all the data information about the thread, like thread number, thread state, program counter, register values. And also it will point to PCB. Okay. Now PCB, because each thread corresponds to a process, and then at runtime we have process image. Okay, and then in that there must be stack corresponding to that thread. So there may, if there are multiple threads, multiple stacks. Okay, it will contain all other information also. All right. Okay. All right. This is a simple data structure. And now one way of organizing this PCBs and TCB, because each process will contain multiple threads. Okay, there must be some data structures, right? Such that there is a pointer from each PCB to TCB and TCB also to PCB in some sense. Okay, all right. So this is one data structure. There can be multiple data structures. That's possible, right? This is the old one actually. It means at first you'll have to go to PCB and then TCB. Now, if a scheduler wants to schedule at the level of threads, okay, it may take, for example, a thread of one process, then swap it out and then move some thread of some process, then this structure will not work because it will take many accesses, right? Level. So there's some other, you can think of many new data structures that are possible. Okay, so one thing you can do is that find out in what way latest Linux release organizes thread tables and process tables, or PCBs and TCBs. All right. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Before you said that each TCB has a pointer to the PCB, right?
Yeah.
So instead of like having a queue of PCB, we can just have a queue of TCBs, like, because we already know what process it points to.
Yes, there is a possibility. You can, this reason we say that you can organize it in number of ways. The number of ways you can organize, but there must be some also, when a whole process is moved out, then its state must be saved in somewhere, PCB or somewhere, right? So all the threads information must be then have a pointer to corresponding process, and it should be, all these things should be accessed in very short period of time. Okay, you can think of any structure. Yes, I mean, if you just want only TCBs, but you'll have to see that are all TCBs, when a process moves out, can you remove all the TCBs in the radial list and move it somewhere? Can it be done quickly? Or there is a one TCB of first process, then second TCB of second process, and so on. Then how do you delete those or move those TCBs out of radial list? So that you'll have to see. So it's all optimization. Okay. So the best thing is that look at the latest research. What I've shown here is quite old. Of course, I mean, I've taken it from Berkeley slides and latest one. So this one is structure. Maybe I don't know which OS uses this, but this is one possible data structure. But you can organize it. Think of better structures than this one. But look at pros and cons of that data structure. Okay. So now we use term kernel threads, as we discussed earlier, by threads created by kernel for kernel processes. The processes that kernel use for its own use, for management, scheduling, etc. If we create thread in that, we call that as kernel threads. Although many authors use kernel user threads managed in the kernel as kernel threads. So don't get confused here, right? All right. So this one diagram that I have taken from Anderson's book. Okay. So what does it say? Thread management in kernel. Now you can see there are two types of threads. Okay, here is a user level processes, and this is a kernel level processes, right? So in user level process, you can see there are two processes, P1 and P2, or process 1 and process 2, and each is having two threads. Okay, so there are two threads here. This also has two threads, A and B. Okay, and then there is a stack. Okay, the like process image will have a stack corresponding to. So there is one. So both are part of the process. So both stack will be as part of this process image. So it's stack 1, stack 2. So these are two shown here. And for the process code, globals and heap remains the same. So now corresponding to this, if you see in kernel, what does it create? If the thread is managed in kernel, then it will create corresponding TCB. So this is TCB corresponding to this thread. This is TCB corresponding to second thread, thread B. And then there is a stack for local computations. This we call it kernel stack, right? Or interrupt stack. Okay, where local variables corresponding to act for the thread can be stored. Okay, because kernel has to do some activities for each thread, and it means that there is a need for scratch pad. So all those things can be stored here. In some OSs, this at the time of context switching, right, the values of registers can also be put here before moving into TCB. But in general, the values of state of a processor when thread moves out is there in TCB, but some OSs say that at least program counter and few things can go quickly into this kernel stack. So all right, so this is clear, this part is clear. Now what is it here? Now for kernel processes, it has its own stack. Okay, and correspondingly, if it has multiple threads, okay, there's kernel thread 1, 2, 3 of a kernel level process, then it creates own threads here and corresponding stacks here. So that's a depiction. So here there are three kernel level threads and 2 user level processes, each process having 2 threads. So each user thread has user stack for executing code. So this is user stack or part of this process image, and kernel or interrupt stack for executing interrupts and system. Oh, I'm sorry. So there is a kernel stack here for system call execution and other executions, which is done at kernel level. Okay, any question? All right. Now, if this diagram is again depiction of same thing, if threads are managed at local user level, then a simple, and if this is a process containing 2 threads, first and second, then third thread can be created without OS knowing anything. So there is no interaction with OS. Okay, if it's the threads are created at kernel level, then OS is involved here. Okay, right. And a thread can be blocked without blocking other threads. So this is we have already studied. Okay, just few minutes I will take and then stop. Now thread, we said that thread programming is complicated because we don't know which thread will execute when. Okay, so overall result, you have to do proper programming to get right result. And there is a basic characteristic of threads is that non-determinism. We cannot, because threads can run in any order, and scheduler can switch between threads at any time. Okay, so this makes whole, deterministic behavior very difficult to achieve. Okay, and then threads are independent, right? Okay, so no state shared with other threads. So even note that threads are schedulable entity. Okay, and each has its own state. All right, and then okay, all right, I'm sorry. So non-determinism is one property. Okay, okay, and then threads can be independent threads. If there are 2 threads, they're not sharing anything with each other. Okay, so there's independent threads. I'm sorry, and then cooperating thread is that they are cooperating with each other. It means there is some communication between them, or there's some data is being shared among them. All right. So now correctness condition for these two, we'll have to determine whether it is same or different. Okay, if they are independent, then correctness is easy to achieve. If they are cooperating, right, then we'll have to see if the sequence is proper and so on. So in order to achieve correctness, we'll have to design it properly. Okay, so now there's something called race condition. Okay, a race condition can happen because of concurrent execution. Then I think next week we'll study a race condition in detail. Let's assume that there are 2 variables, x and y both are assigned to 0. And then thread A runs x is equal to 1, or thread y executes y is equal to 2, and they can run in any order. Okay, B can run before A, or B can run before A, or A can run before B. What is the value of x when both completes execution? Value of x is only 1. So here thread B does not interfere. Okay, so there is no race condition here. Now let's look at this scenario. Initial values of x and y are the same. thread A does this operation, x is equal to y plus 1, and thread B this operation, y is equal to 2 and y is equal to y into 2. What are the possible values of x now? Anyone?
1 and 5.
1 and 5. What else? There is the 3 values.
It could be 3.
3 could
6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1, 3, 5 are the values, right? Depending on when it gets stopped, right? So let's see that if this runs first, then x value of x is equal to 1, then it's 1, answer is 1. If this is run first, this statement is run first, then y is equal to 2, so value of x becomes, second answer is 3. And third answer is that these two run first, so it will y is equal to 4, 4 plus 1 is 5. So these are 3 possible values. So we'll have to, now you can see that very small program, if interleaved, can cause race condition. Okay. Now I'm leaving you to look at this example. This simply shows and how can we exploit parallelism in matrix multiplication. We can have 2 threads and each thread can solve a part of the problem. Okay. Similarly, there's a web server example which we have discussed. In fact, we can have multiple threads doing multiple tasks like tasks shown here, and it can be done in parallel. Okay. All right. All right. So now we can creation of multi-threaded program. We'll have to just take care of a lot of things, and one, of course, important thing is that race condition should not be there. All right, so these points we have already covered. Now each thread must be identified, right? So there is usually thread ID. Okay, and similar to process, a process creates a process can create or fork its children. The thread should also be able to do that. So thread can also fork or create its children. Okay, but is there a difference between the two? Yes, there is a difference between the two. That we'll study in the next class. Okay. Okay, all Windows and Windows and Linux, etc., all support POSIX thread library. Now, something that we are programming using is API. We need not worry about details of this POSIX library. How does it do? Or underneath OS, because it provides API. Okay, so now you run program using C and POSIX library calls or APIs that will work on any OS. Okay, and we call this pthread library. Okay, so we'll look at this. These are some basic operation any thread library will do. Thread create a thread. Yield, it means the thread will voluntarily stop. Join, which is similar to join we have studied in case of process. So where a parent waits for forked child to die. Okay, and thread exit. Thread can exit by calling this. Okay, and then these are the details of the same thing that we just spoken about it. And then process can have a thread can fork the processes, and then we can join, and then the original thread can continue. So this same as process, right? So it's also possible, right? Okay, all right. So we will next class we will study pthread library. All right. So today, just to conclude, we have looked at concept of user managed thread, or the threads actually created and managed in user library, and threads that are created for a user program or user process with the help of kernel, and then kernel manages them. Now also we have discussed that the hybrid model is also possible, where some task of thread management is done at user level, some are done at kernel level. Like for example, thread switching can be done at kernel user level library, and so on, right? So various combinations or flavors of this possible. Next class we'll look at only at APIs and try to do some basic programming. All right. Okay. Thank you. Any question? Okay, then. Thank you.